This is AyAyAyAi, where we discuss artificial intelligence and machine learning from as many perspectives as possible, as many perspectives that would like to come and discuss artificial intelligence from their lens of view. So today we have Michael Steiner, and we have Nas, who is well, together, all three of us will discuss aspect of artificial intelligence that we really think is the most important part of artificial intelligence, and that's people. It's artificial intelligence based off of people's intelligence. And to talk about people is to capture the core of what's needed today, what is needed for the future, and what has always been the core focus of any technology. So, without further ado, welcome to AyAyAyAi.
Aye, 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 aye. There you go, man. That's a chant for us. No, it's a pleasure to be here with Michael Steiner here. I mean, he's the industry expert, domain in robotics. I am certainly looking forward to learning from Michael. I think there's a lot of wisdom here. And I think Mike or Michael will help us dismantle how artificial is this intelligence. And I think that'd be a journey to uncover. So looking forward to it for our listeners as well. I think it's going to be a great sort of a discussion point. So looking forward to see what it unveils.
So first of all, ay, Ace and Nace, we have a challenge ahead of us. So many aces here. We'll have a challenge. We'll have to fix the AI, the machine learning, as we move along.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Michael, I think I try to learn more about you, but there's just so much to unpack about you, right? I mean, years and years of experience in all the things you have grown from its infancy, right? Um, please give us a introduction and please make it lengthy and give us everything we need to know about you because there's so much to unpack because there's so many people who will listen and they will need to know where they probably will have to reach out to Michael and say, Michael, tell me more.
So the LinkedIn title will say that I've been the executive of Best Robotics in the last 5 years, almost 5 years, and before that, a board member of Best Robotics. But I think the hidden gem probably is that early on in my childhood, I discovered the amazing thing that is hidden in people, and I became literally curious. What is hidden? This amazing phenomena that people are. I didn't know yet that people are going to invent technology, machine learning, AI, generative AI, all that. But I knew that people are going to deliver. And then it became almost like a mission in life for me to learn as much as I can from people, wherever they are, whatever language they speak. I later, not much later, discovered that I have a tiny gift of learning languages. I speak more than 5 languages. I started with French, later Arabic, later other languages, Polish and Russian and other. It's like music in my ears. So it helped me go to countries, learning their culture, their food, their music, and so on and so on. My brother had the same gift, and so on. But the key for me is that when I was about 9 years old, I discovered from the other side of the planet, I discovered what I believed are the American gods. Uh, Born in Tel Aviv, I started seeing the American Corps of Engineers coming to the Holy Land to do projects from the American military and things that didn't make any logics, like building Air Force bases on dunes, like Air Force F-15s flying very low, and things that, from practical aspects, couldn't happen. As a kid, as an 8 year old, I thought that this couldn't happen. So I developed this imagination, who are these Olympians, American Olympians, that make all of this happen. Many years later, I discovered to my surprise that these are real people. I met them. There's a woman on my board who invented the electrical engineering of this F-16, F-15. You can imagine as a boy, as a young man, what a surprise it is for me. And I'm saying it straightforward that a woman is responsible for this loud airplane that flew above this 8-year-old boy. And I discovered other women from TI, from Raytheon, and men who did all of that magic.
That's right.
Discovering all of that fed more into my curiosity and my endless belief that people of all ages, all races, all backgrounds can do literally more than we can ever imagine. This is who I am. I'm a believer that more than any technology we can ever invent, we are one step ahead. Always, will always be, no matter what we believe about the risks or benefits of AI or anything we will drive, we will always be more. That's who I am.
Beautiful.
What a
Uh,
humble introduction. Naz, I think I mentioned to you how humble Michael is, and this is what I meant by that.
yeah, yeah. No, that was beautifully said, Michael. There's a lot of stuff that you said that has very profound impact in my thought process, in terms of the contribution from, sort of, as you mentioned, minority group at the time, right? Women that you mentioned, which was not seen in the revolutionary stage, and having them come in and make this much of a significant into a field that had, absolutely, I mean, caught everybody off guard too. I mean, and it's amazing to hear how they were actually part of that fabric, part of the DNA in the infancy stages. And then again, you talk about the risks and everything. I mean, I go back to the days of Star Wars when I used to watch D2, as a robot. So those memories, like again, of how a robot would function and the risk associated with it, as you mentioned. I mean, it's just mind boggling. And being a student myself, I mean, I always struggle is like learning is one thing, but where to even start asking question? What's the right question? I mean, in this particular field. And what I'd love to hear from you is literally your journey into robotics. How did that started? And then how do you teach people about robotics? People like us, people like me, that have sort of what I call adjacent idea how to what I call understand it, but not really the extent of or the depth of understanding that you exhibit or your students would exhibit. How would you kind of go about that?
So I think, Naz, you're asking an amazing, amazing, profound, not to compliment you, but you're asking an amazing question. I think there's two sides to your question. I think there's the side of the robot that we keep designing that is literally meant to keep us safe, to guard us, to help us, to do many tasks that are all around us. To use just one example, because of a childhood friend of mine who is responsible as a life career of his to develop all the technologies that are, we call them autonomous driving, but this is really beyond that. It's somebody whom I know since I started walking, and he's leading one of the largest research institutions for one of the largest manufacturers of cars. I deliberately do not name him or name the manufacturer, but this is beyond the autonomous driving.
Wow.
This is when the green light on your dashboard turns on and you're literally not driving your car by yourself. but the robot in the car takes on, and you feel that the steering wheel isn't in your hands. The robot is taking over. And while you think that you're not falling asleep, the robot thinks otherwise. And you discover what your wife is telling you, that from time to time you doze off.
Yes.
So this childhood friend of mine and a team of geniuses around the world are making sure that although your ego tells you that you are always awake, the truth is that you're not. And this development is making sure that the numbers of us casualties stays as little as possible. So this is side of the robots industry that is dedicated to keeping us here as much as we can, because we have those imperfections that unfortunately grow the imperfections. This is one side of what you asked. That's why the question is so important. Watching over us. Again, I'm a dedicated optimist on why we need this industry to continue. And Gil, this friend, is dedicated to that. It's not him, it's the geniuses researchers that save us
Mm.
in the robotics industry. The other side of the robotics industry is a mean for us to, and this is what BEST does, to design, to imagine, to boost the curiosity in us and other aspects. And the robot is a mean, so that we have a challenge in people who get stuck in the mining or or sustainability or any challenge that most of it we caused, and we use what we call the robot as a way to unleash powers we have inside our brain, and the robot is a mean to pull these powers we have, and we call it robot. And we design a robot, but around that robot we pull many other capacities we have, and we design something. The engineers are not going to love what I'm saying. Some will not. The robot is the excuse, because we around it form a company. We do an exhibition, we do entrepreneurship, we do many other things. The robot is at the center of it. I think if the robot had a soul, he would laugh. He or she would smile and say, I'm happy I caused you to do all these amazing things just because of me.
Wow.
So these are the two sides
Wow.
of the robotic industry in a simplified, relatively long answer to your question.
No, that was beautifully said. And Asif, I think we're gonna have to do multiple podcasts with Michael here. There's a lot of wisdom here, and there's a lot of history behind this. You know, just curious, since you mentioned best. How do you like number what was like the sort of the theory behind coming up with the best robot company name? And because you have General Dynamics or the likes of them, right? How do you differentiate between what they do, what you do? But it seems like the best robot is like the best robot.
So
Mhm.
again, you're right, Naz. It is today best, your best. They are the best. And when I speak to them at the beginning or at the end at the championship, I say to them, it isn't the original name, which was Boosting Engineering, Science, and Technology. That was the original name coming out of Texas Instrument by the founders that
Mm,
were Texas Instruments, engineers in Texas Instruments. They had a vision which is STEM, which was boosting engineering, science, and technology. They were thinking about the design of a robot and STEM skills. But something happened to the world that started with them, and they're still engaged and they're still visionary and amazed, as Jane, the one who designed, and I'm not sure she would be happy that I'm mentioning what she did to the F-15 and F-16 radar system, the one woman I mentioned earlier, who I
Mhm.
imagined as an 80-year-old boy who thought of the Olympians, and she is the Olympian, who is on
Mhm.
my board.
Amazing.
Yes, they thought of STEM and robots, but the world changed since 32 years ago. McKinsey, whom you mentioned pre call today, added so many deltas, so many capacities that the granddaughter and the grandson of Jane, who are now preparing themselves to work in TI, in Raytheon, or in Toyota, or in any other company, or in MathWorks, all of them are partners of ours, or Boeing, or any other industries. Those grandkids will need skills that 32 years ago were not on the list. They will need critical thinking. They will need empathy. They will need a long list of what breaks out of communication. They will need familiarity with softwares and many other skills that McKinsey breaks into 56 deltas. So the algorithm that will interview the grandkids of Jane will check if they have those 56 deltas. Phillips will not even interview them. They will be sent a link to an interview which is done all online, not face to face. If they don't have the 56 deltas, they're not coming in. So the kid
Wow.
can be a graduate with a master's degree of engineering. If they don't have the 56 deltas, they're not in. So what best 32 years later is tirelessly struggling with, and you hear me choke because I have grandkids like Jane has, is how do we, within 3 months of a boot camp, which is like the Navy SEALs, empower them with 56 deltas? Did we think about it 32 years ago? No, but the world wasn't as we have now. We didn't have the same skills gap. Today we have a skills gap which is not even what Mark Zuckerberg had when he started Facebook or Meta. It's a completely different world. He wouldn't be accepted to a job. It's a different world, and we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
accelerate them as if there's no tomorrow for them.
Wow. Wow. Asif, I know you got some questions, but man, I just, I mean, I'm thinking like the things that I want to ask Michael, but oh my gosh, profound, very profound what she said. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
it's just amazing.
yeah. Well, there's a word that came up that made me choke up. But I want to go back to what you said earlier about robot having a soul, and robot is asking and smiling, saying, "This is what you've done for me." I heard Nevin Taylor the other day say the same sort of analogy, is that when human sees the answer from Chat GPT, they say, "Wow, what a beautiful answer." What a Chat GPT would say, "Wow, what a beautiful question," right? And
It
that, I
does.
thought, it's the way of understanding what ChatGPT would think, and ChatGPT would say, "Wow, what a beautiful questions you have," right? So I want to continue with the theme of questions here, because I think you covered a few things that are very near dear to education. Empowering people, upskilling people, get them to be where they need to be and be ready for life, so they can collaborate and interact with other people, and through that create a process in the technology. Um, so as you are thinking of the past, future wise, I think you are very, very optimistic, very, very energized to what it is that's coming down the future, and that's not what we see in our news media, social media, or all the community conversations that we have in general. I think that's what sets you apart from rest of the other conversations that I probably will listen into, right? Where it is not that optimistic. It has some negative connotation that comes with it. And previously when we've discussed, you had such a view that again it choked me up. It said like, wow, that's the way to think about future. I can wake up every morning and have the need to go through that day with high amount of energy. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your visions into the future, because you've seen people, you've grown with people. Um, as much as I would like to, I have probably very little people. I have two young boys, 2 year old and 4 year old, and how you framed the future was very I would say shifted my mindset about the future, and I thought I was optimistic. So, but please tell us what your future vision is like. What do you think we are heading towards with AI, if not robotic, or just in general, just as people?
So let me ground my optimism, first of all. Prior to what I'm doing on behalf of BEST as the executive director, I worked on behalf of a relatively known university, and that is Carnegie Mellon. And I'm mentioning Carnegie Mellon in the software engineering because, again, I'm in the software engineering with these kids with MathWorks, also very well known company, small boutique, but in because of their math lab and Simulink, they're world around known. Why am I bringing this up? Because in Carnegie Mellon, to graduate from software engineering and robotics, there's a test that you have to pass, which is follow a white line. The students have, as a team, to design a robot that needs to autonomously follow a white line. It's a ceremony. It's done after 2 years. Above $100,000 has to be paid unless you get a scholarship in order to be able to own such a degree, which is prestigious world around. Money isn't the conversation. The knowledge to own such a degree. There's a long list of students who want to own a degree like that, a wait list to get there. Why this introduction? In 2019, I witnessed a sixth grade girl in a rural Pennsylvania follow the white line one time, two times, 15 times. I started crying. How dare she do something? She's a sixth grade, she's a middle school girl from a small town in Pennsylvania. She didn't finish yet middle school. She didn't finish high school. She has no idea what software engineering is. Obviously, she didn't go to Carnegie Mellon. I looked at her. I was shaking from these emotions. When I stepped back, I thought, this young girl could one day be the chairwoman of Toyota. Obviously, it connects to the story I told earlier about the friend I know from childhood. She could one day replace him and lead the research institute. This is what grounds me to this optimism, knowing that I'm looking at a generation that one day will lead Toyota, one day will step into Pennsylvania Avenue. These are the future presidents. They will step into the House and the Senate. They will lead those places that spread, among other things, pessimism. I'm comfortable completely in looking at them because I spend most of my time with them and knowing that this is the future. All that interests them is this, what you, Asif and Nas are doing. The downside is that they are not interested in media. They don't spend time in front of newspapers. They don't watch TV. They're interested in work, in real life work. There's downside to it because we are not giving them access to universities. They're too young by our standards. Are we making a mistake? I think we are. we should allow them, and I wrote an article about it. Why aren't we allowing her at sixth grade access immediately to study software engineering, fulfilling the promise that she should be one day chairwoman of Toyota, and not waste the valuable years between sixth grade to the age of 18 just because we are structured. You should stay at middle grade, at middle school. You should go first. We are too conservative. We should break the barriers, break the rules, allow her to enlist to university right now with a mentor, a woman mentor, obviously. But we should. That drives my optimism and slight pessimism, which you suddenly heard me say because I'm among many people who are conservative. We are structured. She has to have first a driving license in order to enlist to a college. That's, I was going to use a bad word, and I'm not going to.
It's all right. Emotions do come out,
Of
but
course, even for me,
yeah, no,
Um,
it's beautifully said, man. I think that there's one thought that I had. I mean, and it might just be a slight digression or perhaps on point is, you talked about, having courses or material that enables these young minds to start getting exposed to it early on. It's amazing how we go against nature. And the reason I mention that is there was a study that talked about the evolution of a childhood and how kids grow to be the leaders or the servants. And it's the more of a mindset that they were talking about. And one of the thing that really caught my attention was that every human is born with this intuitive nature of exploring.
correct.
And everything, the moment we're born, everything from that moment onward is built to suppress that. Case in point, a kid goes out and starts to look at something else. Don't do that. Just come here. Well, that's kid's nature. They'll try to touch something. Don't do that. Instead of saying, well, if you touch it, this is the impact. You stop them from exploring. By the time they get to high school, you further impound that, saying, this is the only way to solve a problem when there's multi-million ways to solve a problem. So they get programmed by the time they hit the enterprise, they're not leaders anymore. They're just going to follow the orders because you taught them throughout their life to say, only think this way. When the nature said, you're born explorer, go explore, go conquer the world and see different lenses. And we shut them down one by one to now make them a corporate slave. So it's amazing what you just mentioned. I mean, it kind of, it brings those sort of thoughts together is how do we create a system that allows this exploratory minds to continue to explore and excel in every field that aspires them, right? Every student. And here's the other startling fact that I just recently uncovered. So I was building an app on generative AI, and it was a personalized education planner. And Asif and I, we talked about this. I did a field study on this a little bit. I went to a school and asked the guidance counselor. I said, "What is your student to a counselor ratio?" And the stats are just, I mean, there's like they're mind-boggling. Every counselor has 170 students. Can you imagine with that much? And it's again, I mean, I get sort of the structure of the system, but if you take that ratio and sort of start talking about the value of personalized education, that goes out the window. Because if I have 170 heads to go deal with, how personalized can I be to you? Right? How can I give you that personal experience? So, how do we bring that aspect of let the kids be explorer, let them explore, but then also give them the right guidance at the right time? And I'm going to come back to the point you made. I think this is where the automation comes in play, where you leverage the technology of today to enable those experiences so that these younger generations can then start to explore again.
So I think one way to achieve what you were looking for, Naz, which is how do we enable, without breaking the system, because I don't think that that's the goal, but to enable more engagement. One way to do it, which I think industry and the corporate world is interested in, at least we see it throughout all our system, which is a system of branches around the country, is through mentorship. Mentorship sounds a little bit weird. It gets some people interested, and some say, we've done it. No, here, mentorship means people from the corporate world and industry working with the students, helping them achieve the goals that they have, helping them solve the problem. We've seen throughout many years, and in my case, in more than just best, how it serves as a mean to develop not only a way to solve the problems that the kids are challenged with, and the problems could be very practical. We have a task to fix the electric grid in a neighborhood, and we don't know what grid is. So, uh, can you help us? It's not something I can search on Wikipedia. What is grid? We also need to call an electric company. So, will you go with us when we interview people in electric company? We need to write questions. So, adult in the room, just be with us, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is developing what is typically called the role model, developing a relationship that will lead into what young people say, oh, if you achieved it, maybe I can feel towards myself. I don't want to call it immediately confidence because it's way more important than just simplifying it. It's looking, and the students speak about it very openly. It's looking at the mirror and saying many things that will lead to a person with more wholeness, with W, wholeness in yourself. This is a real danger if you cannot work on it as you grow. And so this adult enables these young people to become more whole, more confident, more presence in themselves. Again, the robot develops to become an excuse. The AI, the technology becomes an excuse, an important one for these young people to look at an human and become more whole with themselves. Why don't the parents become the excuse to do it? Another conversation. But bringing a person from an industry to help the young person look at another person and say, I feel more comfortable with my skin is a huge importance. Otherwise, yeah, you will grow, you will assume a job, and you cannot contribute. Period. However talented you are, you're out very quickly. Again and again and again. Therapy will hopefully help you with that. But there's others way younger to help you develop that skin. Sorry, I got into that, but a mentor.
No, I think what you're getting into is very important to bring up to the surface, because when we scratch the surface, what we think of is that it's not gonna get dirtier than this, right? But one of the things that we really don't bring up to the surface is the imposter syndrome that not only students or adults feel, but think about your workforce,
Yeah.
right? So when it comes to workforce, imposter syndrome almost doesn't exist because everybody in the workforce is a subject matter expert, and you have no way to doubt yourself, and you have to have the arrogance to move forward even knowing what you're doing you're not so sure of, right? So this imposter syndrome that we are well articulating in the schools and in other sectors, but in the workforce, it's literally like it doesn't exist because everybody in the workforce knows what they're doing.
Yes.
Now, if everybody in the workforce knew what they were doing, we wouldn't have all these problems as far as customer services goes, as far as the business process goes, optimization, efficiencies. We wouldn't have that. So imposter syndrome is something that we don't address before people get into the workforce. And all of a sudden they do get into the workforce. Now you're talking about how do we change the mom and dads so that way they can do better with their kids. It's the same thing with mom and dads. Mom and dads don't understand what imposter syndrome is. And
Yeah.
here it is that we are discussing it. And this is the platform that we want to discuss this in, right? Because you can talk about AI machine learning, but if an AI has the intelligence to figure you out and say, this is how I manipulate you, and I'm being serious here. I'm not just coming up
Sure.
with a conspiracy theory
Contribute.
or some sort of fictional information here. That's what Elon Musk, Yuval Noah Harari, thousands of other people, Steve Wozniak wrote a letter saying, please stop the AI for 6 months so we can figure out what it is that we want out of AI. Because
Yeah.
this, if these AIs I can go down a rabbit hole, but I'm just going to keep it to the surface level to say these AIs are manipulative. They can be deceptive to the fact that even we won't know how we're being lied to or manipulated to, right? Even as an AI expert, I always say that if you're a cybersecurity guy, you're still a fool that knows about cybersecurity because you can be fooled, right? And AI is just that mechanism to fool people with, right? So even for an AI expert, I wouldn't know how I'm being fooled, right? So as an imposter syndrome goes, I think that's the conversation we need to have because when artificial intelligence is able to figure out how much of an imposter you are, because remember those questions that ChatGPT can learn you through the answers it gives you, it all ties into that vulnerability that we don't even understand ourselves because it will tap into that vulnerability and do things that we probably will lose control over if we don't early on, at least at this point in time of the history.
But as if the AI can also, if we wish it, can strengthen, uh, leave the uh, imposter syndrome if we wish to strengthen that skin, help the skin create. And if this is one of our goals, remember you're speaking with somebody who will never be able to depart the optimism from his skin. Then if we wish the AI, the generative AI, to strengthen the skin formation, and if we say that this is so important, not only the green light to turn on the dashboard, we want the skin formation too, then we need to ask for it to be created as a green light too, maybe an orange light or a yellow light, and then the AI will help the skin formation so that when we have these communication, it will identify that it needs to help us form a skin. And it will do it. It will literally do it. And it's not an issue at all because it's an extension of our brain. It literally is. We created it. It's another capacity of ours. Just we're looking at it. And so it will do it. It will do whatever we wish.
Exactly.
And there's no issue. I want to go back for a second, a couple of steps back to an example of something which I witnessed because of a board member of mine who was going with me to meet some of the teams. And because of a request he had, we interviewed the team after they won. So we asked them to go into a room with us and we started asking them questions. And we saw a participant with a burqa and he asked her, so what did you do? And she answered, nothing. And almost all the boys in the room jumped and said, nothing? She's responsible. She's a very quiet, shy girl. And they all jumped and said, if it wasn't to her, all the research that our team had in the last 3 months was given to us. Not just for this or that or that. All the research was done by this quiet girl who said nothing. This skin formation, sometimes by the most quiet people in the room, Doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl, maybe it does matter sometimes, or maybe often, is huge. Whether it's delivered by AI or a mentor or the mates. Here we saw empathy jumping by the teammates, and they took the empathy into their hands and ensured that nobody gets the wrong impression. Wonderful. No cynicism at all, that they wouldn't let that go away, and that it's settled, it's clear who did what. And the conversation continued on the value of research in achieving of a team, and why they won because of hair, and that the entire trophy that they got is because of one individual, hair. The skin that she still needs to own one day to understand what she does in this planet is important. They are not enough for her to develop the skin, a mentor, um, so that she would know what research is, what's the value of it, the entire chain process of it. Them shouting, "We won because of her," is not enough. It was good for us, for the executive and the board member, to get the picture, but the mentor, the mentor from industry, who wasn't in the room,
Wow.
is essential for
Wow.
her to grow and develop a skin.
Man, it's such a profound sort of, nuggets there, man, in terms of what you can learn. And, again, it's like a point in time when I look at from where we were, so the 1980s to where we are today. I was reading, it's a bit of a funny note. The guy said is today we live in an age where actually robots is asking her to tell us if we're human. you know so you go to a site and it's like literally the automation, the AI asking you, are you a real human? So the paradigm is shifting, right? Is It's just amazing. And when you take that in context of what you said is, how do you empathize? There you go. How do you bring the empathy to that? And the other thing is, I mean, it may to what Asa was saying about, these sort of like the top of them, top minds in the industry are saying, give us 6 months to figure out what the implications are. The way the human mind is, and again, I don't think anybody can comprehend. I certainly don't. Is you have two permutations. You have this sort of AI code, or a software that operates in sort of the ether. And if you don't see it, you really don't care about it. But all of a sudden, the same software is embedded into, a skeleton of a robot, and now you actually see what it's doing. It becomes material, and it starts to scare people. Uh, so how do you balance that where this technology has been in evolution for a long time? Now you're actually seeing what it looks like if you put it in a material being, why people are hesitant when they can embrace one domain, not the other. How do you break that barrier? Um, Again, it's all mind-boggling, right? Is how do you kind of, where do you start? And one thing that Asif and I certainly struggle with is also the fact that a lot of the organizations today that are looking at the pace of innovation happening within the AI space, specifically now talking about generative AI, how do you, like, if they're not willing to come forth and say, look, I don't know, how do you break that barrier? How do you go in and say, hey, look, there's a revolution here?
So I think there's two reasons, again, we're into two reasons why people hesitate or even attack. One reason, and I want to go first into the into the harder one. One reason is because I think people wouldn't come into terms with the fact that there is no way other than for us to accept the need to sin, to make errors, there's no other way to accept it. Some of the most important, the best memories I own are the mistakes, the cheating. There's no other way. I own it. I have to. I have to keep, I cannot move it aside. I have to hold it. The best and the worst memories of mine is how I cheated and somebody else was punished
Mm.
for it because I was such a good student. And I got tempted to cheat, and my friend was punished because the teacher would never accept that I'm the one who cheated.
Asif,
That
make sure you don't do that. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but
no,
Asif,
no,
don't
no, it's fine.
make sure I don't want to get punished.
But the memory of cheating and others punished is something I have to own. Cannot push it. I have to own it. There's no other way. You've got to walk that pathway. This is who we are as humans. You have to spell it out. You have to
Mm.
say it. You have to admit it. The AI includes the sins as well.
Beautifully said.
It has to.
Beautifully
Has to.
said.
If
Beautifully
we
said.
cannot wrestle with
Yeah.
that thought and accept it, we will never grow into the next and next and next level
Beautiful.
of growth. There's no way. This entire silly conversation about the next and next generation of autonomous cars and autonomous trucks and drones and airplanes, we would have never gotten to the industry of airplanes if we had had these conversations on the dangers. This is the dangers are not in is not in the technology. The dangers is in us. But you have to accept it, live
Mm.
with it. The
Beautiful.
danger isn't in the technology. The danger is in the fact that we own those sins and we are able to spell it out. I will never forget, I say it again, how I cheated from the person who was my best friend sitting next to me. I stole from him an answer. I cheated, not him. He got the fail, I got an A.
Wow.
That memory will never escape my mind. I left the school. I was so ashamed because I was the cheater, not him.
Man,
Will
that's
I, will
beautiful.
I will I easily cheat again? If I do, my fingers will burn again. You have to own it. If you
Mm.
don't own it, you will use AI and cheat. You will use management of your organization and cheat. You have to own those experiences and feel them. Otherwise,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
otherwise, you will
Michael,
never grow.
Michael, it's really bringing back lots of my memory, but I want to hit on something that we started with Naz's question, which is a communication piece, right? And
Yes,
that's been the goal for me for as long as I remember discussing AI machine learning with people outside of my knowledge bubble, right? Is communicate. But I'll start off with this. Marshall Rosenberg, the nonviolent communication author, he mentioned that, you have to communicate your need. And the way you communicate your need differs from people to people. But as you communicate, you really have to be expert and ask based on your need. So let me just use one example here. When I mentioned earlier about imposter syndrome, that's what a hallucination is in a large language model. A large language model is behaving as it knows, just like maybe say a grad student that fakes through a book report, right? Never read the book, but I'm hallucinating here. I'm just making up stuff as I go. So instead of like a third grader who we can tell is cheating on a book report, it's a grad student who's cheating on a book report as a large language model that's hallucinating. So what am I getting here with, right? Because in a corporate world, when we're discussing a vulnerability, we rather call it a risk management or risk acceptance or risk diversion, whatever the case is, just risk something, right? So, in order to communicate that need, just like we have all this corporate lingo, in order to say, like, this is not a husband and wife conversation, this is more a corporate conversation, but it's the same methodology, right? I have a need and I have to ask you for it because the way I ask is the way I will receive the answer. Now, I'll tie that into the whole AI machine learning problems that we have right now. It is a social problem, actually. It's not a human problem. It's a social problem because the way we have structured our languages, when we ask probably not with the best intention of what answer we would like to receive, right? Because if you ask correctly, you probably will end up in the somewhere in the blast radius, right? As in the answer is not going to be completely out of your realm. You would understand it because you ask the questions very methodically, thoughtfully, right? You put some effort into the question rather than just to hear the answer. Um, so with AI, it is about how do you ask for your need, how do you communicate your requirement, and then what sort of visions do you have, how much time did you spend on that vision of what it is that questions that you're asking and how the answer should come up. So I think everything we're discussing here is just boiling down to communication. How do you communicate? How do you communicate better? You've done a really good job at communicating. How do you improve that communication to a level of, say, from high school to bachelor's degree to a master's? Now you're in PhD level communications. You know what I mean? So I just want to throw that in there because what we are discussing, it's not boiling the ocean. It's just literally the start, right? Ocean is somewhere else. AI is somewhere else. We really have to look at our sins. I love the word the sin because you used it, and I'm just like, well, that's the best way to put it. Whatever sin we have, AI is going to have the same.
So let me give Nas the second answer of his question. You will see how it leads to the communication because it is connected. The two are connected. Your question and the second part of the answer are one. The second reason we fail with AI is because we try, although AI is so multifaceted, it is created out of the multifacetedness of our brain's capacity. It is born, to my mind, out of the multifacetedness of our abilities, the brain abilities. It's a mirror image, to my mind, of how the brain capacity is. When we communicate it, we fail. The communication isn't a mirror image of our diversity. Diversity, this diversity, not diversity social or cultural. This. We fail there. What we need to do is resort to ideation, to creativity, to our ability to empower this and ideate the AI, not fall to the trap of explain it in this way or that way, or if we can, explain it this way in a multifaceted way, because it has to be explained the way this, if you remember Odyssey 2001, the movie of many, many years ago, the end scene, the ambiguous end scene, where the movie is not explained at the end, that's the way AI needs to be explained, in a way that is left ambiguous. It has to be in a way where your vision of your company, XGenI, is explained. It has to be interpreted by the recipient and not in a one way. Otherwise, you're ruining a reflection of the brain.
That's right.
That's the answer. That's a not simple answer, but that's the answer. AI was born out of empowerment or an effort to empower multifaceted of the brain, multifacetedness of the brain. As many parts of the brain were flickered, and that's a reflection of it in a computerized way. And it still grows and grows out of it and will continue. To communicate means to try and communicate that multi capacities of the brain, not one dimension of it. That's a mistake. So that's the answer to you, Asif. That's the answer to you. Why people misunderstand it or get just one dimension. Gave a complex answer, but there's no
No,
way
that was
out of it. And I can give you an example of 15 years ago of how it failed, the pre-AI, the machine learning, an example of how a project that I was leading failed, not failed, but how an interim stage failed. We spotted it, and then when we spotted it, how we fixed it. AI today fixes things that the pre-generation algorithm or other pre-generations is failing and feeding the healthcare system with mistakes, or and then AI comes in and says, sorry, maestro, it's wrong data. Let me
Yeah.
give you the right data. Can you imagine healthcare system getting the wrong data?
My gosh. I mean, yeah. Imagine the casualties there. No,
Yes,
this is beautiful, and I want to be cognizant of the time. But what you just said is amazing. The multifaceted aspect of the AI and robotics. How can you misconstrue, like, if technology was born to be multifaceted, how can you, I want to use the word dare, to look at from one lens and
one
not
lens.
actually realize
Yeah,
its true
yeah.
potential, right?
Yes, you can
And
only put one lens
yeah,
on the body of a camera.
that's
AI
right.
was born out of the body of the brain, looking at all lenses at the same time. You need
Yeah,
a model that explain what I just said.
100%,
So
100%,
yes, so this is
100%.
all the lenses of the brain
Yeah.
looking all at the same time. That's AI.
And it's beautiful. I mean, again, it basically encompasses or encapsulates a lot of my own personal thinking. Is, if I'm talking to Michael and Asif, I'm not going to go to Asif and say, "Hey, tell me how good Michael is." Hey, Michael, what do you like to do? I want to ask you because you're there. So it's the same sort of what I call translation in parallel or adjacency. Is, if I have an AI tool, I'm going to ask the tool, tell me how can I best use you so that I can get the best way. That way, you give the AI a chance to explain itself. It's like, hey, I was built for this. Ask me this way. And there's the different ways to look at it, as opposed to being subjective and have my own notion to kind of ask these sort of predetermined questions. But AI can say, hey, look, yeah, get it, but you need to ask it this way because I'm built that way. That's just the way you said it is just beautiful. And I think the more, just to complete my sort of thought process, the more we get into it, is the more I personally, this is my own subjective sort of opinion on this, is that the more people will realize how to best use this AI as it continues to evolve. But my fear is, would we be too late by then?
I don't think I don't think we will. I think the next stages of AI. So today, the robots, and I'm using it in a very simplified way, the robot that is checking my eyes and is making sure that my eyes, my hands, my body, and the lanes are all aligned, and that green light stays focused and takes control of the wheel. So it's not autonomous driving, but it's very close. That robot, so now switch domain. So I'm looking for the AI to follow how the ideation, the divergent thinking in my brain is working. It sees a process of the creativity flickering in my brain, and responsively, it changes the problems that I'm trying to solve. In other words, Naz, it sees how the brain is creating, and instead of leaving the problem that I'm trying to solve the same, because it wants me to bring the level of my creativity further along, it understands that I'm into a creativity session, think meditation, right? So it wants me to further flicker the brain multifacetedness further. It will change the problem, it will modify it so that the brain can go further and further and create more ideas, more creativity. And the brain will generate more and more. The AI will help me reach more. And there's endless capacity inside you, Asif, everyone. That girl at sixth grade, endless. The AI will say, let me reshape the problem that you are trying to solve. I'll reshape it and help you get more and more ideas out of here as
Beautiful.
much as you want.
Wow. Beautiful. Asif, I mean, I can go on and on, but I'll pause here because I want to be cognizant of the time. But my gosh,
Yeah, yeah. Um,
That's the
yeah,
future of AI. No question about it, Naz.
that's
I
right.
agree. I agree.
I think when you say
We will
AI,
say thank you and we will enjoy the fruits of it.
I think AI will have to be redefined from artificial to augmenting
No
intelligence.
question about it. Absolutely.
When you augment the intelligence, how do you assist the body? It'll be through robotics, right? How do we take care of our body better by allowing the robots to do things that damages the body, takes the body's creativity away? And this body is the ultimate delivery channel for that creativity that the mind has. So how do you augment that intelligence? How do you assist that body? Is the future that makes me very optimistic, not just for myself, but for kids, kids that will be the next generation. And what we don't know is what the next generation will tell us. And so, with that being said, Michael, this conversation is just a version one. We need version two, version five, maybe version 100. We need to just open up a radio channel and keep it in the AM and just talk about this 24 hours a day, you know?
That
So,
would be
uh,
me.
AyAyAyAi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us.
Ay, 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 ay,
Aye,
Naz
aye,
and
aye, aye.
Asif.
No, it was great to meet you, Michael. Thank you.
Great
Thank you,
meeting you
Michael.
both, and thank you so much for getting this inspiration out in the open.
Absolutely. That's what we want to do more and more. Until the next episode, thank you everybody for listening.